Good evening, cult members. Welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome, Whovians, to our... We're going to spend a lot of time just cursing Davy's name. Episode review of Empire of Death, Episode 9, according to Disney Plus, Episode 8 of on IMDb. So, however you want to...
Whether you count the
I've had multiple people try to tell me what the right episode number is in the comments on YouTube, and we're both right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
yeah. Spoilers for the finale.
The season finale.
The season finale. They call it series finale. That's UK's weird. They call it series finale.
Okay.
Here, a series finale means the whole show is done.
Yeah. Doctor Who is never ever going away.
Never going away. Hot take: Mrs. Flood is the master.
You think she's the master?
Or she's working for the master, or she's Mary Poppins.
Y'all, yeah. I mean, she's definitely, the big bad, or the one that's orchestrating, or like you said, working for the one who's orchestrating.
Well, I don't think she's directly working for Shutek.
No, I don't think Shutek was the big bad. The one that
I don't know.
The Maestro and
because they all
no, I don't think that happened.
Yeah.
I don't think we got that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyways, all right. We're gonna get into this episode. Miss Flood is a whole different conversation. We can have a whole podcast on just that. Okay. I want to address something that I think a lot of fans need to take a pause and think about what they did in this series. Ruby's mom is just a person.
Yeah.
And that Ruby, the conversation of orphans and being an orphan was a highlight for over the entire series.
Yeah.
And I loved all the speculation of it's River, it's Amelia, it's Rose.
It was just a person.
And it was just a person. And I think once that initial I wanted to be X conversation gets done, I really think that's the right choice. To have her just be a 15-year-old who got pregnant, she hid the pregnancy, she was scared, and she left her daughter at a place where she'd be taken care of.
Right.
And she wasn't a bad person, just a bad circumstances in her life, and that the most common everyday person is super important.
Yeah.
Because her mom, Shutek not knowing who her mom was, is the reason why he lost.
Right.
He kept Ruby and the Doctor alive.
Right.
So just that idea that she was not anybody of consequence and she was just a person, I love that.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the everyday guy, girl, ultimately saved the universe.
Yeah.
Because he didn't know, because she wasn't somebody that he, somebody quote unquote important, like that he could just go, oh, it's this person because I know this person. He didn't know this person because she was just an everyday person.
Yep.
And so an everyday person ultimately saved the day.
Yeah, and that was kind of also a running theme that we talked about a lot throughout the season was almost every episode, it was not the Doctor who saved the day.
Right.
It was an ordinary person or ordinary human stepping up when it was time and they were the ones who had the solution or did the right thing and was the one who saved the day. It was never the Doctor.
Yep.
And that was also a reoccurring theme this season. So the idea that Davies kind of put out in front of us is that everybody's important, no matter how big or how small, specifically how small, and that even and the orphan idea the entire way too. The idea of just because you don't have the traditional idea of what a mom and dad are, you could still be you still have a good life and be a good person. Now, I know that some people who have been through the foster care system have been used, abused, and whatever, and I want to recognize that because it's not a perfect system. But
we also don't live in the UK.
We also don't live in the UK. So, but I know it's been used in the States for nefarious reasons, but that is such a small number of people. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not trying to say that, but it happened such. If 5% of people in foster care or foster parents manipulate the system, it's still 5% too much, but it's still
right. If you think everybody does, just go watch a Bananas game when they do Bananas Foster.
I was going to bring that up too, so we're on the same page. But I really appreciate, like, a lot of people have been talking. A lot of the conservative people online have really been talking about the wokeness of The Acolyte and The Boys and House of the Dragon and Doctor Who. That the idea that this show was showing that everybody is important, I think just people missed, and I'm sorry, but this season was so good. The whole season was so good.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna use the word woke to describe anything, there's the door. Bye.
Yeah.
It means, it doesn't mean what you use it for.
No.
And welcome to the world that the rest of us live in.
Right. Right.
Because people, those people exist and have existed and have had to live in the shadows because you don't like it, and mind your own effing business.
And that's the show, everybody. Thanks for coming in, and hit like and subscribe, and
don't just stop using that word.
Yeah, I'm okay with that conversation. Okay, let's talk about ShoeTech's master plan. So they made a point of explaining over this last week that ShoeTech had attached themselves to the TARDIS when the Fourth Doctor flung him into the time continuum to imprison him, or not the time. Yeah, the time. I'm gonna go with that. And ShoeTech attached himself and hid in the perception filter of the TARDIS,
right,
until it was time for him to unleash his plan. And his plan was to create a Susan tirade on...
no.
Yeah, I think it's Susan tirade.
Triad.
Tirade.
Tirade. Yeah, triad.
That's all the right letters. Create a Susan at every place that the Doctor went.
Right.
So every place and time, every place, every planet, every universe, everything, there is a version of Susan there. That's why she kept showing up throughout the entire season.
Right.
And then when it became time to unleash his plan, he was able to activate every Susan and release the sandstorm of death,
right,
on every place that the Doctor ever been. And I like that Ruby asked the question, "You haven't been everywhere," and the Doctor was like, "I've been enough places."
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah. I mean, the Doctor. I mean, that's kind of the point of Doctor Who, is that there's an infinite number of places that he can go.
Right.
They can go.
And he, she, they, and their companions go places that we don't even see, right? Because we often get them talking about, said
Jim the Fish.
Jim the Fish. We never got an answer to Jim the Fish. We have no idea when that is in the timeline, but River does. Yeah, they'll, come walking off of the TARDIS back in Cardiff. You said you were taking us to a ocean planet, and everybody's dripping with snow or whatever. Constantly. So they're, I mean, they have been a lot of places.
And the idea that that it only all it took was one Susan, one person, one harbinger, because we had multiple harbingers in this season too, that they kind of presented as was also working for or with or presented as part of Shutek's plan.
Right.
That it only took one of them to release the Sandstorm of Death.
Right.
And that the episode started with them killing Kate Stewart. I was she's like, Doctor, it's been a good run, I'm out. And they killed Kate, and I'm like, they're just gonna kill Kate like that? Like, they're just gonna 86, one of the major, long-time running characters like this?
Yeah.
And then they started killing everyone.
Right.
And it was like, oh, no. There's going to be a plan to bring everybody back.
There has to be. Yeah. Yeah, I was the same way. I was like, are we going to bring Kate back? And then, we kind of discovered at the end that her and the unit guy
Colonel
have a thing because they were holding hands. So
Abram, yeah.
She would have, died to be with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I was okay with that.
Although, did they die? I mean, eventually, the one girl kind of went to this weird in-between place for a while, and then
they kind of addressed that because Ruby asked Kate once everybody came back.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything? And Kate said echoes.
Yeah.
So not really necessarily saying, yes, I remember stuff, but there's maybe she'll have deja vu with something, maybe probably, and that might be something that was addressed later on. That's they definitely spent this season doing a lot of things, setting up little details and hints. The 73 yards was brought up.
Yeah.
Or with the idea of the perception filter around the TARDIS, and it was 66 meters, and then Ruby said 73 yards, and the doctor's like, how do you know 73 yards? Well, she didn't remember that, because that was the Pixie episode where she lived her whole life.
Right. And the guy who was the worst prime minister or whatever showed up on her video screen, and she didn't really remember him until the doctor said, he's the worst prime minister in UK history, and so all that stuff came back.
Yeah, some people may butt up against the idea that it kind of felt like an abrupt ending with such a big character. It was a longer episode. I think it was 55, 56 minutes, something like that.
Right.
It was a bigger episode than we've been getting for the rest of the season. We even talked about last week how we were hoping that they didn't wrap a big bow on the end of the season. And ultimately, I think I'm okay with the way they ended up doing it, because Ruby stayed home to be with her mom and her grandma and go find Dad. And the doctor definitely has a kind of a moment of, you've found your family. You reminded me that family's important. I need to find my family. Maybe he kind of feels like that. What do you wanted to say next?
I'm not sure how I feel about this episode in toto. It was fine. I can't say that it blew my socks off for a season, series, whatever, finale. And that opinion may change down the road, and I may be like, oh my God. I mean, there was definitely the tear jerking, and the expectation subversion of Ruby meeting her mom, because the cliche thing is that she just walks out and doesn't actually say anything to her, or she does say something to her and her mom walks out.
Right,
and,
right.
And there's no, but it was, a nice little, closure on that. I just feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions, and maybe that was intentional, but Ruby's a human,
right,
for all intents and purposes. She's got a human mom and a human dad. Why does it snow? That's not something that a human.
Yeah.
And why did the I want to say melody, and that's not it. The musical person in episode
Maestro?
Maestro, yeah. Melody, Maestro said, when they, I'm going to say they, saw her DNA strand, was like, oh, or was, I don't know, it's been a couple weeks since we saw that episode, but was very confused by who she was or who she wasn't, that she wasn't just a normal human. Yeah. So that all doesn't add up for me right now.
I got on the internet a little bit. I guess they were about halfway through the season this year, and they were wrapping on season 2.
Right.
Because they're doing them pretty quick together. And a lot of people were that Millie Gibson was one and done with the series.
Right.
And I'm like, no. There's no way they're going to have this pulling thread the entire season of who Ruby's parents are, who Ruby's mom is, and who this person could be for the overall story of Doctor Who. They're not going to just have it completed in one season.
Right.
I did not understand at the time that they were doing this orphan kind of story. I was just kind of doing the Doctor Who kind of part of the story.
Right.
But when that conversation was going on, BBC actually did something right. Maybe it might have been Disney Plus, and did behind the scenes set photo shoot of Ncuti, Millie, and then who's going to be the new companion, Varda. I can't remember. She was the military one,
right.
Military person in the ambulance episode where the doctor was standing on the mine the entire time.
Yep.
She is going to be the new companion for next season. So I believe going to be several episodes with her without Millie, and then Millie's going to come in, and then there's going to be something whatever.
Right.
And they made a point of saying, "You will see me again." They said it multiple times, but then he said goodbye to her.
Yeah.
At the end. So I really think that story arc with Ruby is not done yet.
Right.
I think it's definitely we have the confirmation of who her mother is. They met. It's definitely her mom. It definitely makes sense. Who's dad?
Right.
They said dad's name, but they didn't show him.
Right.
And I'm not going to speculate that it's Jack or Rogue
right.
or whoever. I want to, but as of we sit right now, we just don't know who. So I feel like that could be the next thread.
Yeah, it could be.
And the finding of your family, because they made a point of asking the doctor, "Are you going to go try to find Susan?"
Right.
And that thread, that unpulled thread of Susan hanging out there and having Susan, not tirade, Triad, Susan Triad. Everybody kept saying that she was granddaughter,
right?
Susan,
right?
So maybe Mrs. Flood is Susan,
right?
But ultimately I think there's enough story points that this is the end of the first act, the end of the first storyline,
yeah,
and stuff.
Hopefully.
Let's talk about some of the things we did get in this episode that we thought was fun. We had the Remember TARDIS that was in the room. That when the doctor opened it, it was much smaller on the inside.
Yeah, it's more like a closet.
It was much. It was a shoe closet, but it had pieces and parts of all the previous TARDISes because it is the memory of the TARDIS. So if you in your head think of a piece that you remember from one of the TARDISes, it was in there.
Right.
And I really love that they did that with this idea of the only ones that kept their memory is the Doctor and Ruby, and everyone else, if they died, lost their memory. And memory is losing your memory is the vehicle to death, I guess is what they were trying to say there.
Right.
And so it just, all the screwdrivers were in there. The scarf was in there. The question mark sweater was in there. The tie-dye, the multicolored jacket was in there. Mel kind of like leaning up against it and trying to smell her Doctor.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the bow that she first grabbed, she used to wear around her neck.
Yeah, yeah.
If I remember right.
Yeah, and then the fire was like was like a mini version of the center of the TARDIS from Jodie's time period.
Yeah,
which I thought was really kind of a thing. So I really appreciate that they threw all that detail in for that one little room. And they kind of kept going. They talked about 1999. The Doctor said all the different times I've landed on 2020, 1066, 1999, 2005. So the modern Doctor with Ncuti, 1066 is Hastings. That's a big deal for the UK. So that's a whole different podcast. 1999 was Roland Atkinson's time as the Doctor in a short-lived Red Nose series for the benefit of Red Nose charities, and at Christmas, at New Year's Day, that's when we get Paul McCann doing the Eighth Doctor. So they in the last 2 weeks 3 weeks they've done Richard E. Grant's Doctor, and Roland Atkinson's Doctor is now canon. So we added those in.
Right.
And then 1999. The name of this episode is Empire of Death. Empire of Death was a book that came out in 2005 that deals with the Fifth Doctor after Ulrich dies. And so it was which also is talking about death and seeing ghosts and all that kind of stuff. So
yep.
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of interesting, and I think I saw like the little Easter egg things that I caught. And then there's all the the unit stuff, which is just Rose is there. Okay, why is Rose there? Like we're still on the why is Rose there and not Donna. Overall for this season, have you been? Are you much more happy than the previous seasons that we have had?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it feels more like the old New Who. Not the classic Who, which is the old Who. This is the new old Who. You should hear them live. They're much better.
They're much better live. And if you understand that reference, welcome to our podcast. But from Ruby, the church on Ruby. Ruby Road, the church on Ruby Road. From then on, it's just the weirdest title ever.
If you say so.
From there on, I've really appreciated this kind of building on the overall story of Ruby and the Doctor with the individual episodes. That's the one thing I missed with the Chibnall era, and it was a decision from higher up at the BBC and Chibnall that they wanted to do individual episodes where you can jump in whenever you wanted, and I totally understand why they did that. But this is Doctor Who.
Right. Yes.
You have the new, you have hints to things that are coming, and you have the member berries. That is what Modern Who has been, and why it's been on since 2005.
Right.
On our, hold on, I have to do math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th, our 8th Modern Doctor. No, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7th modern Doctor. And so I think it's a big deal that that this kind of storytelling is what the storytelling is what we want.
Right.
And so I really want more, but we have to wait till Christmas.
Yeah. Boo.
Boo.
We do have other things to watch.
We do. We're watching House of the Dragon week to week and doing this kind of breakdown and reaction. We're doing Acolyte week to week with this kind of reaction. We'll probably do a breakdown of the entire season 4 of The Boys because we kind of missed the start of it.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of behind on that. And then we've got The Penguin coming and stuff, and a bunch of movies coming. So
yeah.
So follow us is what I'm trying to tell you. Follow us here on Spotify and on YouTube. It takes nothing. It's free and stuff. Tell us what you think of this episode. Be really nice in the comments. That is a requirement around here. The woke band hammer is over there. We will use it. And follow us on all the social media stuff: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links in the description down below. All right, Kuvians, we gotta wait 6 more months. It'll be shorter than the 3 years we just went through.
That's true.
So until next time, good afternoon, good evening, and good night now.